Hey guys, Pretzelman945 here. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing an anime that I finished today called Ergo Proxy. Um, this is, without a doubt, by miles and miles, far and away, the craziest and most insane anime I have ever seen. And I honestly have absolutely no idea where to start with this, or even like what I want to talk about. Um, because this entire anime is just such a mind fuck. It is so much of one that makes Serial Experiments Lane look like a slice of life anime by comparison. I think though I want to start with the characters, and I think that might be the bulk of my discussion with this show. Because as I was like reading some reviews, trying to collect what my own thoughts were on the show, I sort of decided that I thought that um I think that the real strength of the storytelling in Ergo Proxy, and I think the reason why it succeeds is because of the fact that it has such strong characters. And the way that the themes of the story tie so well into the characters is I think the reason that it succeeds. Um and and I want to talk about basically all of the main cast here. I'm going to start with uh Meyer. Um and I think that she is fantastic because she is this excellent sort of representation of what um like I don't know how to word this. Like what um what society is what society has become, and trying to project that image on to um and trying to project that image onto the rest of the world that is outside of her bubble. And Vincent Law is the exact opposite, sort of, because he is like this immigrant type character who doesn't remember who he is, and um and if anything, he tries to forget what he learned about the outside world in favor of trying to acclimate to Ramdo and gain this new experience, instead of like clinging to what he had in the past. He wants to completely gain something new, whereas Ryle Meyer wanted to put her experiences onto the things that he did not know. And I think that the two of these characters reach a very difficult balance to meet, where both of these ideas work in tandem and they don't feel like they clash. And as a result, um it's able to build this incredibly unique and interesting narrative about like what the nature of proxies are, where they come from, uh, who created them, and all of the lore that actually exists on the proxies is insanely deep, like way deeper than I was expecting. And it's a case where, like, the initial plot of the show is taken to such a further degree than I could have ever expected. And like I really do enjoy shows like that, and I think that Ergo Proxy is a very, very good example of that. Uh, Other characters that I wanted to talk about. So, I honestly think that my personal favorite character, and I really I've reflected on this a lot. Um, Even though it's only been a few hours since I finished the show, I think I've done a lot of reflecting in only a few hours, and I think that my favorite character is actually Iggy. Um, because I already thought that the concept of like infected auto raves, in terms of like expanding the world building of this show was very, very interesting, and I thought that um Iggy was the most interesting auto rave character by far because he's intended to be. The only other like significant auto rave character is Kristenza. I believe that was her name. Um, but even she doesn't have nearly as much personality or development as Iggy does, because Iggy is sort of torn between these roles of like protecting Ryle and also wanting her and also like encouraging her in her journey to sort of discover new things and trying to be there for her that entire process. And I think what Iggy as a character accomplished really well is he sort of embodies both the elements that make Ryle and Vincent's characters great, and but just like mixes them together in a really nice bucket that I think is just very effectively done with one singular character. Um, and so I really, really appreciate that aspect of his character. Um, uh, and besides that, other major characters were I don't hmm. Um I don't really have like that much to say on Kino's character specifically. Um because I don't feel like I got that much value out of her story. I think depending on who watches this show, I think that this is a case where different people will get different things out of certain characters. Like, I feel like I probably got a lot more out of Iggy than a lot of other people did, but I didn't get as much out of Kino. And I think it's very, very unique the way that this show can likely have a different effect in terms of like who appreciates which character more depending on who watches it. Like I can safely say I really don't think I've ever encountered another anime that's done that kind of thing before. At least in my opinion. Other people might think that is makes no sense, but um so as a result, like I don't have that much to say on Pinot other than like she was cute and I liked her as like a supporting role for Vincent in a lot of ways. Um and her sort of like parent relationship with Raoul was quite tragic. That's the next character I want to talk about. Raoul was a very interesting character to me who, from the beginning, sort of seemed like primed to be an antagonist because he was like the sort of head of the security bureau and he kind of seems like this authority figure that represents what a true citizen could be and it seems like he was set up to be an obvious foil to our protagonists in the show. But what I really like is the fact that he was a subversion of that, but it was also sort of an expected subversion. Like it was a subversion, and yet it also wasn't a subversion, if that makes any sense. Um, did I expect him to go down the path he did? Like this idea of like being so true of a citizen that you end up falling beyond the boundaries of the system. No, I didn't expect it, but it also wasn't like the most unexpected outcome. And I think that that makes Raoul's character incredibly interesting, and I think that he was definitely my favorite character alongside Iggy as well. Um, and yes, and the other major character that I feel must be mentioned is definitely Idolus, who is like um who is um Ryle's doctor. But in reality, he is this incredibly fascinating, very multifaceted character, who in the end, like, in my opinion, it was sort of a bit too multifaceted, perhaps. Like, I think this is another case where I didn't really get as much out of his character as maybe some other people do, because I thought that if anything, he was sort of too multifaceted, and there were some moments where I think that the show was trying to make his character into a ton of different things, and a lot of those things sort of like clashed together and didn't really flow smoothly for his entire character idea. Um, but that being said, I do think that every one of the individual ideas that um are accomplished with his character are interesting, and I think that they work well in the scope of the world of Ergo Proxy. Um, but the way that they come together didn't exactly work all the time for me. Um, the other major thing that I want to talk about, which I saw was sort of a repeating thread among a bunch of the mixed or negative reviews that I read, or even like very positive reviews had this as a negative aspect of the show, was the sort of sequence from, I would say, episodes 14 to 21. Or no, 14 to 19. Yeah, yeah, 14 to 19 and or 20. Although I think 20 had a bit more of like a little narrative purpose, so I don't think that one counts as the range. Let's call it episode 14 and 19. Um, Episodes 14 and 19 are this range of episodes where the gang is like together. They are traveling on a journey to try and get to the mosque to recover Vincent's memories, and along the way, they encounter a bunch of different extremely weird situations. Like one of them is like a straight up whole ass game show. Another one featuring Kino is like this entire cartoon type park with like OG looking cartoon character designs. And all of these are revealed to be like the works of other proxies, and them going away is sort of the sign that Vincent defeated those other proxies with his proxy form. Um, and I see in many of the reviews I read that like a lot of people did not like the series of episodes and considered them sort of a waste of time, and um crawling the plot to a halt. And I wanted to give my own opinion on this because um, I almost had the same opinion, and I do sort of have the same opinion, but I think it's like very. When I agree with these critiques applies to certain episodes, and other ones it doesn't, because I think that this sort of approach to the storytelling is a case where it worked very differently based on the episode that it was in. So, like, I'm going to kind of take this episode by episode, if you will. Um, uh, I'm just gonna look up an episode summary list because some of them it's been a while since I watched. So like it starts with like Ophelia at number 14. Um and this is like one where I don't think it works as well is like, for example, they're in a dome of sorts, and like strange occurrences. Like that one was just really weird. But then the game show one I thought worked really well because that was like an example of like gradually revealing more and more interesting lore about the show, and I thought that that worked really well. And also, Dead Calm is great because, like, it's a fantastic sort of quiet episode. Um, who, and it sort of just talks about like uh the characters and their like routines, and it's maybe the most like character focused episode of the entire show. But then like I didn't think the Smile Land uh worked that well because I thought that that was just like a lot of vague metaphorical dialogue. So I do truly think that it is very much a case by case basis with this attempt at storytelling, and I think that it was mostly successful. And even the episodes that I didn't think were as strong were not like unbearably bad to me. They just weren't as good as others, but they were still enjoyable just because the character led storytelling was so strong in this show. And I think that like probably sums up the best that I can describe my opinions on this show. Um, this was such a wild ride of a show, and I genuinely don't know if it's really one that I can recommend necessarily, but I thought it was a very good anime. Um, and yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.